Welcome to the Darkstream. I'm VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, and Infogalactic News. So, you're probably aware that Alex Jones was interviewed by Megyn Kelly. So what, right? You know, I've never paid any attention whatsoever to Megyn Kelly. The main reason that I pay attention to Alex Jones was the fact that he covered the Bilderbergers, and also because Mike Cernovich has been working with him. Now, let me point out first of all that Alex Jones is much more successful at what he does than I am at what I do, and so I think that you need to sort of take it maybe with a grain of salt. If there's somebody who more or less knows what he's doing, it's somebody who's very successful. On the other hand, it's also a mistake to assume that just because somebody has been successful at one thing that they do, that they know as much about something that is even tangential. You see scientists make this mistake all the time. So, listening to Richard Dawkins talk about either mathematics, theology, or philosophy is borderline painful. It's probably sound in biology, but when people get out of their areas, it's a little different. And the mainstream media is a fundamentally different creature. It's a different environment than the kind of fringe stuff that we do, or let's say alternative stuff that we do, that Alex does, etc. How is success measured? That's a good question. And you have to remember that success is entirely subjective. Okay? What makes a book successful? What makes an interview successful? Not everything is measured in money. I used to say, if my main focus in making games was to make money, then we would have done. We used to joke about doing games like Crips versus Blood long before GTA came out. Some crazy stuff that probably would have made a lot of money, but was stuff that was just not games that we could morally justify or ethically justify doing. So, you have to understand what the objective is before you can say, oh, this person was successful or this person was not. For example, A Sea of Skulls, which is my most recent novel, it hasn't sold that many copies. It's sold maybe 2,000 copies or so. That's okay. But I consider it to be a huge success because people almost uniformly compare it to Tolkien rather than to George Martin, which was the original comparison that I had in mind. People don't even make that comparison anymore because they consider A Sea of Skulls much better than the books in A Song of Ice and Fire. So that's success in that particular context. My nonfiction books sell very well. My fiction not as well, but I'm more concerned about the fiction being really good rather than being massively successful. Would it be nice? Sure, but not at the cost of what the true objective is. So let's look at what Alex's objectives were. We don't know exactly what they were. So that's why it is important to recognize that we're on the outside looking in. But I personally think that, like a lot of outsiders, Alex Jones has some desire for mainstream recognition for mainstream acceptance. Not a lot. You know, he's obviously, you know, he is not doing the kind of things that he needs to do. You know, he's not willing to compromise his message in order to get that mainstream respect, right? He could, but he's not willing to. And it's wise that he doesn't do that, because he would lose most of his audience. But, you know, some people simply have that desire. I mean, everybody probably has some element of it, but, you know, in some people it's stronger than others. And so, when someone like Megyn Kelly comes to a figure who has been a figure of contempt, a figure of you know, the target of much mockery and that sort of thing by the elite media, who are only paying attention to him now because of his massive audience. You know, they, as you heard in the tapes, they lie, they butter you up, they say that they're your friend. I mean, you know, Megyn Kelly was saying that she's fascinated by him. You know, I think she said something like she was addicted to watching him and stuff. It's utter bullshit. It's complete nonsense. You know, they have the media has a couple standard routines that they run when they want to make you their target, and one of them is the fact that, or you know, they'll play the "I'm your friend" line, you know, or "I'm a fan" line. That's what Kelly played. They also play the "we want to give you the opportunity to get your story out." That's another one. And then another one that they play is "help me to understand this new thing that you're a part of." I get that's the one I get all the time. You know, I get that we're trying to understand the alt-right, and we understand that, you know, you're a central figure, you're a leader, blah blah blah, and you know, it's bullshit. You know, I know the drill. Why do I know the drill? Because I am a former nationally syndicated columnist. I have written for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, for the Boston Globe, for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, for Chronicle Features, for Universal Press Syndicate, for Computer Gaming World, for Electronic Entertainment. I know their game. Now, I was always a columnist. I was not a reporter, so I never played that game. But I saw all the reporters playing it all the time. I mean, literally every day. And you're not going to pull one over on them. They are good at this. They are professionals at this. They do this literally every single day to people just like you. Now, of course, Alex is experienced. He knows what's going on. He knows the drill. But, like somebody said, he has a weakness for attractive women. You know, anybody who is that interested in being on camera is intrinsically a bit narcissistic. They have to be. You know, it requires an amount of narcissism, and a narcissist is always going to think that this beautiful woman is just fascinated by me because I'm so smart, I'm so clever, I'm so successful, I'm so different. I'm kind of fortunate in that I'm not prone to that, simply because I used to have a record contract when I was 22 years old. And so, I saw the very, very different way that the same women would behave, whether they knew I was, in a band with a record contract and had seen me on stage and blah, 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 or not. The difference was night and day. And so I learned early on not to trust. No, what you're not understanding, those of you who are saying that Alex was never fooled and he never trusted her, you're not understanding the point. Okay? He did everything right. He did everything that people suggest. You know, he not only, and he was smart. I'm not criticizing him. He was smart. He not only recorded the interview, but he recorded her pre-interview discussions with him. That's very important. I did the same thing with David Pacman. It was very important that I did because he turned around and tried to lie about it. Okay? So he knows that. We'll get to that. Somebody mentioned the turnaround game. We'll get to that. But where he got played was he thought that he was going to be able to put some pressure on them because of his large microphone in order to make them play a little bit more fair. You know, and Kelly was sending all the right signals. You know, he knew it was bullshit, but he also thought that they were going to play a little bit more fair because he had this big audience. They knew he was recording it and stuff. But here's the point. Their microphone is bigger than yours. Their microphone is bigger than mine. Their microphone is bigger than Alex's. He didn't force them to show their hand. He didn't force them to show it at all. You know, he didn't release this stuff himself. Have they released everything? He tried to get them to release everything. Has it been released? And he hasn't released it either. Why not? So because he is still trying to work with them and that sort of thing. And that's his call. Again, I'm not this is an analysis. This is not a criticism. I am attempting to learn from this rather than play backseat driver and that sort of thing. So anyhow, the point is that that what we're learning, and this is what you should all realize, is that look at how somebody with one of the biggest independent platforms still couldn't either threaten them or force them to change their narrative. I've read the various media pieces. You know, they not only follow the line of the hit piece, but they turn their coverage of the hit piece into ancillary hit pieces. Oh, Alex Jones was sweating. Alex Jones was angry. They used you read the articles, like the article in the LA Times. You know, they practically hit every negative element that you normally see, except for the fact that they did not imply that he's a criminal, and they did not imply that he was creepy, or, you know, he wasn't, you know, I was kind of surprised because I thought they would try to run the line that, you know, Megyn felt uncomfortable because of the way that Alex was hitting on her. You know, that was the line that I was kind of half expecting them to roll out. But but the thing is, from Kelly's perspective, it was a bomb. It was a complete failure. Why? Because she did not scratch Alex Jones. She didn't harm him in the slightest. You know. Now some people are kind of interpreting that as, well, see, that means Alex Jones won. No, that's not. I mean, Alex Jones' objective was never to, like, I'm going to expose Megyn Kelly as a liar. All right, we know that. You know, this is the. So then shut up with your opinion. If you just got here, shut up and listen. You know, nobody asked you for your opinion, all right? So the thing is that, you know, yes, Alex did well tactically, but it had nothing, it did nothing useful strategically. And so I think that Alex Jones was hoping that that they were going to normalize him, that they were going to do the newfound respect for him because of his massive audience and his success. You know, the mainstream media, and that was not an unreasonable hope, because the nature of the media is changing. The mainstream media understands this. The alternative media understands this. And so in some ways the alternative is going to be, in some ways the alternative is going to become a genuine alternative and so forth. And so, and that's the thing is Alex Jones is going to be successful in normalizing himself because he's bringing in more people and good people like Paul Joseph Watson, like Mike Cernovich, and he's going to be bringing in others. You know, I mean, you know, if he's working with Cernovich, there's a very good chance that I'll be on one of the shows at some point in time. You know, who knows? But the point is that you know, it doesn't do. If you do a good job, like Alex more or less did, he didn't do a great job. You know, I was a little disappointed that he did not have solid, prepared, convincing answers ready for the obvious gotchas like Sandy Hook. You know, that's not just the editing. Okay, if you have, I mean, I've shown you that if you have a concise and succinct answer that they don't want to broadcast, and that's all you give them, then they do not have the ability to spin that. Now, of course, it doesn't do you much good. Why? Because if they can't spin it, they don't use it at all. It gets cut. You know, so, but the point is, he could have caused them to cut the Sandy Hook stuff rather than make it the center point of their hit piece if he had prepared adequately for it. And so that, you know, that's just what it is. And so, and again, I'm not criticizing. I have made the same type of mistakes before myself. You know, Cernovich Cernovich basically provided the model when he did that 60 Minutes piece. So, you know, he prepared, he knew what questions they were going to try to hit him on, and when they, you know, when you can anticipate what your opponent is going to do, then you can hammer on it. No, there's no chance of a Streisand effect on the Sandy Hook story. Nobody cares about it anymore. You know, so, and that's the thing. There are reasons for media pros like Cernovich, like Alex, like Milo. I would also potentially argue like Paul Joseph Watson. These guys are good enough with the media, and they have the ability, if they prepare, to defang the media's regular advantages, that it is advantageous for them to permit the occasional mainstream stories. But you need to keep in mind that you are not them. I am not them. You know, if Megyn Kelly wanted to do a story with me, I would simply say no, absolutely not. You know, there is no way I am going to put myself in that position. If they want to do a hit piece on me, I can't stop them. but I don't have to cooperate in my own hanging, and I don't need to give them the material that they gather from hours and hours of interviewing you. And so, anyhow, it's important to remember that, because some of you guys, I know some of you guys are, building up your Twitter followings. Some of you are developing your own voices. Some of you are going to be in these positions in the future. Look at where Mike Cernovich and Milo and I were a year ago. A year ago, Cernovich had fewer Twitter followers, maybe a year and a half ago. But Mike, I remember when Mike had 27,000 Twitter followers, because I thought that was a ton. I had like 5, and Milo had, about what, had a couple 100,000. Now suddenly, Milo's often, he's not on Twitter, but if he was on Twitter, he would be in the millions. Cernovich is 300,000, and I'm right around 30,000, right? Who knows, maybe a year from now, I'll have 300,000, and my audience will continue to grow. My blog already gets 3 million page views a month. And so, we are going to continue to grow our audience, but we also need to be aware, especially those of you who are on the lower rungs or who are just entering the lower rungs, you need to not talk to the media, because they are going to take you out. That's their goal. They've tried with me. Wired tried with me. A number of publications have tried with Mike. Milo, you saw what happened to Milo. And so, but we have our own alternatives now. We have Gab, thanks to Andrew Torba and you and E. We have Free Domain Radio. Stefan is, in my opinion, Stefan Molyneux is the most important individual in the alt-right, and he absolutely refuses. He does not talk to any media in any form ever. It's funny. I get contacted frequently saying, "Can you put me in touch with Stefan?" And I always tell them, "I could, but there's no reason to." And I said, "Well, why not?" I said, "He's not going to talk to you. He doesn't talk to you. He does not talk to the media." They're like, "Well, can we interview you?" I always tell them, "You can send me written questions, and I will send you written answers in response." They never use them. It was kind of funny. I got contacted again by the same guy, the same reporter, who had written this big piece on the alt-right, and he came back. He's like, "I've got some more questions I'd really like to." I'm like, "Why should I answer your questions? You're not going to use them." We're just in this space. I'm like, come on. You know perfectly well that you had space. Look at the jokers that you chose to quote. You quote some of these nobodies that nobody's ever heard of, have no following, but they serve your narrative. I will never serve your narrative. You cannot force me into your narrative. You might as well give it up. And it's true. Remember, many people tend to project, especially SJWs. SJWs always project. They desperately want fame and attention. They find it very difficult to believe when you don't. I cringe when, some reporter contacts me and I feel like I need to do it. No, there's no reason to speculate it was an orchestrated stunt. It was a straight-up hit piece, and Megyn failed. And so, the strategy for written answers is make sure that you only write what you are willing to see appear on the front page of the New York Times. Speak the truth. Show them, exactly what your message is, and most of the time, they'll end up running from it. Think about this. Of all the stuff related to the alt-right, how many times have you seen the 16 points of the alt-right referenced in the mainstream media at all? Basically never. Even in pieces that refer to VoxDay, the alt-right leader, blah, 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 which I stress is bullshit. There is no leader of the alt-right. The alt-right does not need a leader. The alt-right having a leader is a category error. The alt-right is a philosophy. It's a political philosophy. There is no leader of a philosophy. It's like saying, who's the leader of capitalism? Who's the leader of socialism? Who's the leader of, who's the leader of Stoic philosophy? There's no such thing. I contribute. I'm one of the thinkers. I contribute, but that's all. And so, so I think that, yeah, I'm the leader of the alt-right, and so can you. That's the one thing we learned from Gamergate. No, I have no comments on the Greg Johnson, Richard Spencer slap fight. Frankly, my first question is, again, and which one? I'm not really interested in that kind of stuff. I mean, there are personalities who want to seek leadership and they want to define things. I personally don't see any use in that sort of thing. Just observe, think, speak the truth as best you understand it, and we'll see. No, I'm not talking about London tonight. I'm kind of bored with that kind of stuff. Actually, I will say one thing about London, and that is Islamophobia is a phobia of peace. And I think it's important that people understand that. So, anyhow, to get back to Jones and Kelly, these things, these opportunities are going to continue to be put out for those on the alt-right who are becoming better known. Because the media needs to shape the narrative about those individuals. We know what the narrative is about Alex. He's an angry, sweaty guy who says crazy stuff. Okay? That's their narrative. That's what they want to push. And, I personally think that there's no reason for Alex to play into their hands. But, like I said, he's very successful. He's perfectly capable of making those decisions on his own part. Kelly is not going to last very long. She is overpaid. They were hoping for her to really bring them up. And what does she do? She goes and does a hit piece on a guy and doesn't leave a scratch on him. Somebody asked about Brokaw. Why did they need to bring Brokaw in? They needed to bring Brokaw in because they needed someone with some gravitas to pronounce that that Alex Jones was wrong. No, this is not Aleister Crowley. This is Oswald Spengler. So, yeah. So Kelly was set up to be successful, but in my opinion, it was actually Trump that broke her. I don't think it was an accident that she cut her hair and left Fox and all that sort of thing. She would have helped her career a lot more if she had done a fair piece, because then she would start to, at least create the possibility of being someone who is honest and gives people a fair shake, which would be a valuable position to be in the media, because nobody else is. I mean, who thinks that Anderson Cooper or anybody else on television is going to, is capable of doing that? So, anyhow, I don't think, in the end, I think Alex Jones came out of it better. But, what effect it had on his objectives and his success, I don't know. For example, one thing that we do know, a better comparison, is look at that stunt that Jack Posobiec and Laura Loomer did. You can actively measure the benefit to them of that particular stunt. Loomer went from 5,000 Twitter followers to 40,000 or 35,000, whatever it is now. Posobiec didn't gain as much because he's already followed by 150,000 people, but he picked up another 5,000 or 10,000, and plus, got a tremendous amount of coverage in the media at the time that his new book is out. So, so what you do and how you interact with the media is largely determined by what your current presence is, what your current position is. And so, going on Hannity and that sort of stuff. Again, if that's your goal, that's a good way to do it. And personally, I was a little disappointed. I told Jack that what I thought they ought to do is actually have men in golden mech armor stomp up onto the stage and scream that they're there to protect the God Emperor, and have a smoking book with skulls and chains attached, screaming, according to this, you're a heretic. And I smell heresy. How awesome would that be? And if you're going to do a stunt, do a stunt. This is, as my wife would say, this is why we're so happy that you never leave the house. It's kind of funny because there's a couple basic truths in life that I think I live by. One is there's no occasion in which a Public Enemy quote is inappropriate. And the other one is, it is always funny to quote Warhammer 40,000K. Particularly in situations where nobody else has any clue what you're talking about. So, yeah, unfortunately I didn't win a Hugo. If I had, Mercedes Carrera had agreed to go and accept it on my behalf, wearing full American Indian gear. So, that was a pity. But on the other hand, we have some hopes for the Dragon. So maybe I should get in touch with Mercedes and see what's up. So, anyhow, that's all I have for tonight. But the one thing that I want to remind you of is don't talk to the media. The fact that Alex Jones can do it, the fact that Mike Cernovich can do it, does not mean that you or I can do it. So have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.